Welcome home to Racine and Me, the best show on television. Also, welcome to July. We're really getting deep in the year now. On today's show, well, she's in the Democratic primary for Wisconsin's first congressional race. Kathy Myers is here to talk about why she got into the race. Then, it's coming up what's described as the largest 4th of July parade in the Midwest. Fourth Fest is on its way. We'll chat about what's coming up this year. Then we have a visit from both a well-known and well-respected rapper from the East Coast. Masta Ace is here coming through during a tour stop in Wisconsin. But first, our mission continues to talk to all of the people on the ballot trying to fill the congressional space left vacant by Paul Ryan, who's represented the 1st District since 1999. Well, here's your list of candidates on the GOP side of things. 6 names there, but among them, one definitely stands out as most controversial, and that is Paul Nehlen. He's joining me now. And Paul, I don't know if you agree with me or disagree with me as the most controversial candidate. What do you think?
I would say probably the most attacked candidate, for sure. I've run Fortune 500 businesses around the globe. I've got a bunch of U.S. patents. I've done a bunch of good things in my life. And so, since I'm not controlled by the GOP, meaning I don't take money from the same people that Paul Ryan took money from, they can't control me. So, they loved me when I was a volunteer. They loved when I was a diamond sponsor at 2014 Fall Fest. But now that I went against Paul Ryan with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, they really have moved against me. So I haven't stopped being a Republican. I haven't stopped being a conservative. I've been the same guy I've always been.
Yeah, and you bring that up, and we have the statement from the Wisconsin GOP. This is what it says, that Paul Nehlen is not a member of the Republican Party of Wisconsin. Nehlen and his ideas have no place in the Republican Party. Why didn't you run as an independent, if that's what's coming from Republicans?
Well, because I am a Republican. I've been a Republican my whole life. And so this isn't a sorority or a fraternity for these guys. This isn't Robin Voss's private fraternity where he can say, you're in or you're out. The reality is I'm a Republican. I believe in the Republican creed. I believe in meritocracy and working hard and not having the government provide for you. And while I do believe in some safety nets if people fall down, I don't believe they should be lifetime safety nets. So, I worked very hard from being a very young man until this point, and I believe that we're all capable of doing that.
Well, if you Google your name, the main thing that comes up is white supremacist. Now, I want to ask you, do you feel as though you are a white supremacist?
No, of course not. I'm pro-white. I don't know if you've noticed. I'm sure that your watcher, the people watching you notice, I'm white. And so I'm married to a Latina woman. You don't see that anywhere in my Wikipedia profile because the people who are editing that Wikipedia profile are against me. So I can't edit my own Wikipedia file. Google's addressing that Wikipedia file to suggest I'm a white supremacist. There's no such thing as me being a white supremacist.
Well, okay, we'll return to that. But why don't we talk about your elevator pitch to voters? Okay, first, before we return to that. What do you tell people while you're campaigning?
I tell them that I moved to Wisconsin in 2008 to run SPX Corporation's Process Equipment Division out of Nehlen. We grew that business from 150 million to 180 million over the course of 2 years. They sent me to run Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. I moved to London and traveled all the time. But I loved Wisconsin when I moved here. I paid Wisconsin taxes while I was in Europe, as is the law. I moved back to Wisconsin the moment I could, and I married a Wisconsin woman who happens to be a Latina woman.
And you decided to run for Congress, and in fact, in 2016, you actually made a pretty good dent against Paul Ryan there. You got 10,000 votes in the 2016 GOP primary, but you're not a fan of Speaker Ryan. How do you feel about President Donald Trump? He's in town recently, fundraising for one of your opponents, and also there for the groundbreaking of Foxconn. How do you feel about the president?
I'm a huge supporter of President Trump.
Even though he's fundraising for one of your opponents?
I feel like that's a dig that you're trying to get me to go against President Trump, but I'm not going to go against President Trump. The GOP wants to suggest that Brian Style is the front runner. Brian Style is not the front runner. Brian Style hasn't elucidated a platform. He likes cheese curds and Jimmy John's, and that's really all we know about Brian Style, other than he was a lackey of Paul Ryan who picked him up at the airport and drove him to his home. That's great. I've made payroll here in Wisconsin since 2008. I've done volunteer work in Wisconsin. I'm a member of the Lions Club. I've been very active in my church and in the community. I love Wisconsin. So to suggest that I would go against President Trump because he's working on behalf of Republicans, and the Republican Party wants to suggest that I'm not a Republican, I'm the most conservative person in this race.
Yes.
And they can't control me.
And President Trump in town for Foxconn, how do you feel about the Foxconn deal?
I'm thrilled about Foxconn. I think it's wonderful. I think anytime you have the opportunity to have more jobs in your district, that's a great thing.
Now, let me ask you this. President Trump, also a Twitter user. You were kicked off Twitter. However, you still are on Facebook. And, you know, I personally feel kind of shocked like looking through the posts that you make. And I was wondering, I want to go through a few of them, just so we can talk about it. So during the recent Racine situation, you posted this image, and basically putting forward imagery of the ape from the tweet that Racine put forward. Tell me about why you wanted to post this.
I interact with people on Facebook or Twitter as a matter of my First Amendment rights. And so for Twitter or Facebook or YouTube to negatively work on people's First Amendment rights, I think is wrong, which is why I proposed a shall not censor legislation, because those large mega monopoly corporations have protections from the Communication Decency Act of 1996, which was created long before social media was even around.
How do you feel your African American constituents, say you were elected to Congress, how would they feel about a posting like that?
I wasn't suggesting anything about African Americans in that post. There was nothing about African Americans in that post. My sister is married to an African American who I speak to every week. So to suggest that I'm against African Americans, if that's what you're doing, is absolutely wrong. I don't see color. And when I married my wife, I thought she was Egyptian. Turns out she's of Mexican descent. It didn't matter to me.
Okay. You bring up people of Mexican descent. You posted this photo of a child in a cage, and the caption there, the first Space Force cargo containers are already being loaded for Orville storage. Godspeed, Alejandro. Tell me about that.
That is obviously was a joke because that photo was falsified. That wasn't a real photo. That little kid ran around that thing and made to look like that to make people feel bad that illegal aliens who have broken into our country are being put upon. People shouldn't be breaking into our country. We should have a double fence.
Are you trying to get the reaction like the children who are being separated from their parents at the border don't deserve sympathy?
I think that if you had shown what I wrote there with that picture, it would fully explain to your audience what I said, which is we ought to have a border fence from the Gulf to the Pacific Ocean. People shouldn't be coming across the border. I've been a volunteer with Operation the Remembrance Project. And the Remembrance Project works on behalf of families who have lost family members due to illegal alien violence. There should be zero crimes committed by illegal aliens in this country.
Well,
I don't want to hear about rape. I want to talk about the number of crimes should be zero.
Let me ask you about this one more post that I pulled. This was of Anthony Bourdain after he died. The part that you put up was, "Will not miss this Jew who really hated white people." Now, how do you defend that?
I don't have to defend it. If you put up there the picture of what he said about white people, I'm a pro-white person. I'm a white person. And I'm going to stand up for my race when somebody says negative things about my race. So Anthony Bourdain said many negative things about white people. In fact, he had a show where he said no white people are welcome to come. Now, imagine if you decided you were going to interview all of the candidates, but one of them happened to be a Jew, and you decided you weren't going to have any Jews come here. I would feel bad for the Jews that you did something like that.
Don't you feel like that's in poor taste?
I think it's accurate. I think accuracy has nothing to do with being in poor taste. It has to show when a white person makes a comment about a Jew or about a black person, that's critique. And every single day, blacks, whites, Hispanics, Han Chinese, in all sorts of circumstances, for all sorts of reasons, are criticized. All races except for one, Jews, are subject to criticism. And that's a double standard, and that's got to stop.
Well, I appreciate this discussion.
Sure.
Thank you for coming on the program.
Okay.
Okay. Well, stick around. We're staying with congressional politics here with Kathy Myers. She speaks just after the break. Thank you, sir.
That was fine. There was no problem. I had no hard feelings.
Thank you for stopping by.
Yeah. You got it. And when will this air?